another episode of Smoking Section Podcast. Make sure you go and subscribe and like and follow and all that good shit and review. I have here someone who I didn't realize till I think it was last month we met in person that you had DM'd me a long time ago when I first started this podcast about being on the podcast. We have here, he is blowing up, ladies and gentlemen, Roman Alexander. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm doing good. Yeah, I did DM you. That was a long time ago. I love cigars. I'm a pretty avid cigar smoker. And then we also go to Casa de Monte Cristo, which is
Which
the
is the
spot.
spot.
And they have some of my favorite cigars. So I remember when I saw that there, I was like, oh, well, I got to be on that. Number one, I'm already a customer. And number two, because that just is an awesome concept. I've never heard of that before. But.
I gotta admit, I'm a smart guy when it comes to. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not.
Hey, it's okay to take credit for your own stuff, man.
When we were at Red Door and you said to me like, oh, I DM'd you, and I'm like, I don't remember. I'm like, I don't remember being DM'd about this. And then I went back, he's like, and you were like, but no, we've actually had a conversation about it. I'm like, I don't remember this conversation at all. Because it was like 2018, 2019. It was definitely during I think season 1 or season 2. When you DM me, and I'm like, I went back and looked, and I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah. And definitely before I had anything going on too.
I'm glad I got you on here now. Even it took 3 years at this point now, but I'm glad. I really can't believe that I had this podcast for 3 years now. But I'm glad we got you on here. This is going to be a great conversation. Let's because I don't know much about you besides of what I've researched and what I've read.
Mm-hmm.
We've only hung out once, and you just played a show for us. So let's talk about you and your childhood. You from what I've read, you're from Parkville.
Yep.
Out there by KC. Are you a Kansas City Chiefs fan?
Oh God, yeah. I'm an original Chiefs fan though. I mean, you get the people who, obviously are bandwagon Chiefs fans. They only like the Chiefs whenever they started winning. And where are you from?
So I'm from Philly, but my second team that I root for is the Chiefs because of Andy Reid. So I root for the Eagles. Yeah.
Okay, I remember you guys talking about that. I think in Red Door.
Yeah.
I'm an original. I mean, I had one of my favorite Chiefs players of all time is Dante Hall back from 2003 to Priest Home, Trent Green, Tony Gonzalez era. I mean, the Will Shields. I mean, like that was like my favorite team growing up. So, I mean, it's just cool to see them win a Super Bowl and then go back to a Super Bowl, lose a Super Bowl, and then hopefully go all the way this year. So, yes, I'm an original Chiefs fan.
Yeah, well, I mean, to name all those names that I haven't heard in a long time, that I really forgot that they actually played. So you went through the hard times of Alex Smith.
I sure did, and Larry Johnson, and you betcha, Dwayne Bowe. Like I've been there.
Wow. So what was it like growing up in Parkville?
I mean, it's a normal suburban town more than anything, and I say town because it's right outside of Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
It's just smack dab right in the middle. I mean, you get the perfect mixture of city and country life. I always say that, but I grew up more or less out in the rural side of things. But a lot of my buddies were just, 5 miles down the road, and they were more of in a suburb city area. So it's a really weird dynamic, but it's a great place, man. We have nice little shops, and then you go 10 minutes downtown and you have a Gucci store. So, I mean, there's a perfect little mixture.
I didn't have a Gucci store in my town. There's no Gucci store. I don't think there's a Gucci store in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I don't think there is one, which is kind of crazy.
I spent a little bit of time up there. I've spent some time in like Newtown Square area.
Yeah. Good old stomping grounds, man. So let's talk about your family. You and your musical influences, because you started playing at a very young age and you started singing in the family band. So what kind of music and things like that were your family playing in this family band, and what got you into music?
Well, what got me into music in general was like my grandpa playing Elvis Presley for me in his 1998 Suburban. I was sitting in the back seat, and That's All Right, Mama came on, and I remember him being like, "Hey, I'm gonna play something that's gonna change your life. You just got to listen to it." And ever since then, I've just been like the biggest Elvis fan. Our family's a big Elvis fan in general, um, but my mom, saw that I took a liking to that, so she bought me a guitar, and my uncle went with her, who has a country band back home. So that's the family band that you hear about, that I've probably spoken of. It was his band, and they were just chicken pickers. I mean, they're just good old classic country boys. And so I played everything from Johnny Cash to Merle Haggard to when I got into high school, I was doing it to impress girls. So I did it. I was playing Keith Urban. Floors Work the Line was big at the time, so I was playing those covers and then throwing some originals in there. And those were terrible songs. Um, but I think we've been there, done that before. So
What was the first song you wrote? You remember it?
Oh yeah, it's gosh, I can't believe I'm saying this. It's called Beer and Chew, like chewing tobacco. Beer and Chew. I thought I was like real stereotypical country. Um, my mom, I'm sure, has the lyrics somewhere. She keeps track of everything.
So I'm very curious on how that song went. So if there's a recording anywhere, please send that over to me.
I remember the concept being my girl left me and all she left me was beer and chew. I remember that.
You know what? If you go back and reread those lyrics and rewrite them, you might actually have a hit on your hands.
I might, and it's only one person right, so it's 100%.
Exactly. So you might get a little hit on your hands. You never know. How old were you when you wrote that?
Probably 10 or 11.
Yeah, well, you never know. You never know nowadays.
It's funny that I knew what beer and chew was at 10.
At 10? At 10, yeah. I mean, we learned a lot before 10 from school.
I learned everything I needed to know on the school bus. So I always tell everybody that.
That's very true. I learned everything I need to know in the gym.
That's a very
in gym class.
Yes.
I mean, we make fun of a previous president about how there was locker room talk, but everyone has said something along the lines or have made some type of joke along the lines that's like, whoa, what the hell does that mean?
And especially if you grow up playing like sports, and when you get into a locker room, more or less high school sports, I remember hearing things in the high school football locker room that I just if I ever heard my kids say, I'd probably disown them. I mean,
I would. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'd probably disown them the things that I've heard in the locker rooms before.
Yeah. It is and it's hard because it's funny because I remember like seeing pictures of some of the guys I played football with and in high school or baseball or rugby with, and you see them and they're posting pictures with their fiance or their kids and they're married now, and then I'm like looking at them, I'm like, I remember some of the stuff you used to say in the locker room. It's just hard for me to look at them any other way. So
it's crazy because it's like when I have a daughter, if I even have kids, it's like as a parent, I feel like people like they try to protect and block their kid from the things in the world, but it's like at the same time it's like, but you were part of that world at one point.
Yeah, my mom was always really she was always a big advocate of not trying to shelter me too much because she knew that if she sheltered me too much, I was going to probably go and do it anyways. And so, she has been, my mom and I are super close, and so are my dad and I. And they were both really good about just kind of, live and learn. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to, us over sheltering you and being overbearing is probably not going to benefit you in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
So yeah.
So when were you? When did you move to Nashville?
I moved to Nashville about 6 years ago, or 5.5, I guess, right after high school in 2015. So
you graduated in 2015.
Yeah.
God, I'm old. God, I'm old.
Where'd you graduate? 2014?
2008.
Ah, okay, that's not that bad. My sister was 2010, so you're only 2 years older than my sister.
All right, okay. That still doesn't make me feel any younger. Okay. So what was your first impression of the city?
It felt a lot like home. Kansas City's got that kind of small town feel to a degree, and they've done a
Mhm.
really good job, even though it's growing like crazy, keeping that. And I think Nashville's done a pretty good job, even though I've watched it grow. I mean, every year, every week, I feel like the skyline just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and there's something new there. Um, and every single time I talk to somebody, I'm here for music or I'm here for entertainment. I feel like I hear that quite a bit.
Yeah, it's like it is a melting pot, but I feel like we all just we come to this town for music.
Yeah,
And it's like instead of swimming in a pond or swimming in a lake, you're actually swimming in an ocean. So it's then there's a lot of great white sharks. There's a lot of gigantic whales out there that is like, fuck. Am I really
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like, am I going to make it because this guy has this fucking well with them? Like, you know what I mean? That kind of shit. And it's just one of those where that's really what it is. It's not a pond. Everyone says, oh, there's other fish in the pond no. When you come to Nashville, you're coming into like this big ass ocean
hmm
because everyone wants to be a songwriter and everyone wants to be a country singer and everyone wants to be something in the music industry there.
yeah. I learned really early on, and I think I had to learn it myself. I was working. I had the typical sob story. I was washing cars out at the Audi dealership, and then I was cleaning gym equipment. And I don't mean like working at a gym. I mean like legitimately like cleaning gym
Mm-hmm.
equipment. And then would go and write songs at night. And work bounce between two dealerships washing cars. And then I went and became a merch guy and sold merchandise for Easton Corbin, Shenandoah, and Jody Messina. So I got a little taste of the road. And the reason why I took that job is um, I knew that if I went out there and sold merch and was on the road, I would probably figure out, hey, being an artist, is this something I want to do? Because I came to this town with the intention of being an artist. Usually it's vice versa, where people come here to be a songwriter and they kind of stumble into the artistry. My biggest thing is I just want to cut the best songs, whether I write them or not. And if
Mm-hmm.
I happen to write them, that's great. But the biggest thing for me was I just want to be an artist. So the merch thing was a really good learning tool. And when I started getting jealous of the artists up on stage, I knew I had to quit. And luckily, I kind of stumbled into my publishing deal that way. But to go back to the first thing you had said with the ocean, I learned early on that keep your circle small. It's a
Yeah.
good to grow your circle, but I had my best friend is still my best friend. The person that moved me here is still my best friend, always will be. We're like brothers more than anything, and I've just kind of slowly grown that circle. And I've learned that who are your friends and who are your acquaintances. I think that's been my biggest thing. But never turning down an opportunity or turning down a meeting. Uh, every coffee meeting, everything has leads to something. But I think sometimes young artists or young songwriters move here and they get a really bad taste in their mouth because they try to become friends with everybody too fast and they don't take some time to actually learn about what they want to do.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. To go bounce off of that is, you know, when I moved here, I had some connections, because I had already worked in radio when I moved here,
Yeah,
but it wasn't like to the point where it's like I was able to make phone calls to these people all the time and like get their advice because they were already in the business and they're already making their money and doing their career kind of thing.
yeah,
So it's tough, but I mean being in this town for it's going on 12 years and it's like I feel like just now I'm just it says a 10-year town. I'm in year 11. After 10
yeah.
years, they say that you start feeling like you know you're starting to get where you want to go and you start progressing. And I think that's where I'm starting at now. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Is where like my network is getting bigger,
hmm
which makes it as your network gets bigger, and you say keep your circle small, but as your network gets bigger, you also start being very, very selective
Yep.
on who you get close to because you can still keep that circle small because as Steve Harvey says, as you continue to climb uphill, there's going to be people falling off out of your circle.
And you're a big Stevie Harvey fan. Okay, so I am too. I'm a massive Steve Harvey fan.
Yes,
He's one of my favorites. That
he's one of
guy
my
is
favorites.
one of the most underrated motivational guys in town, or
Mm-hmm.
not in town. I mean the world. I meant
In
to
the
say,
world.
but
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I feel like I'm starting to see you everywhere even more. But you hit the nail right on the head. Is yes, you get more selective, but then for me to bounce off of that, I feel like sometimes you have to not get so, like, for me, I had to find that I didn't need to get so butthurt about the people who used me for contacts or for things like that. Like, whatever, that's going to happen. And I think out of that, you learn who your real friends are.
Yeah, I had to learn that. And I also had to learn that not everyone is going to be your friend and not everyone is going to help you, because
Right.
there's going to be a lot more people. There are going to be a lot more people who are friends to you or close to you because of the connections that you have
Mm-hmm.
with someone or with something that they want to get into, and then they'll be nice to you or they'll be friendly to you until they get what they want out of you. I had to learn that, but it's tough. It's tough in this industry because it is in this industry, even though we are all quote unquote friends and family, we
Yeah.
try to treat as a family. We're still, everything's still a business. Everything is still survival of the fittest. And sometimes you have to be an asshole to get to where you want to be. And sometimes you have to be an asshole, step on some people to get to where you want to be.
Yeah.
But I think that's every industry, not just, I think it's a lot more ruthless in the
Mm-hmm.
music industry, but I think that's every industry in any way of trying to become successful in what you want to do.
And more importantly, like, not being afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in entrepreneurship, and I mean, as an artist and as a person, who runs your own podcast and is into the event space and radio, etc. You're multifaceted, and I think we're entrepreneurs. It
Yep.
doesn't mean that we're always in it just to make money, but we're in it to build a business and grow a brand and expand a brand, and the intention of profiting, but also building fans, friends, and
Right.
longevity.
Right. And it's when you get into it, is you have to have the understanding that, guess what, you're not going to make that money that you really want right off the back. It may take
No.
you 10 years, it may take you 2 years, it may take you 20 years, but as long as you are constantly hardworking, then at least in this town, you'll eventually get to where you want to go.
Yep. Risks are everything to me. I think people that don't make it, or make it, that's a very weird word, but people who don't find fulfillment, more importantly, didn't take risks. They played it too safe. And there's a way to play it safe, but also be a risk taker. My favorite entrepreneurs in any facet were always risk takers, whether that's a Steve Jobs or a Jeff Bezos, or a Johnny Cash or an Elvis. They all took risks.
And that's the name of the game in this industry, because you wouldn't have a Garth Brooks if someone didn't take risks with sign a Garth Brooks or George Strait, or even a Reba. So that is the name of the game, and that's how you have to have that mindset. If you don't have the risk taking mindset, you probably won't survive, to be quite honest. So what's been the what's been your motivation? What's been your inspiration to do what you do, and what's your why, man?
Failure. Failure is my absolute driving thing. I think if you're going to be an artist, songwriter, or anything, I think your trash can has to be a lot bigger than your success bin. I tend to carry a very big trash can around with me. I might write 100 songs, but out of that, 2 might only fit the thing and 1 might only get cut. So for me, failure is my biggest driving force. That's what motivates me every day. If I don't get something right, I'm going to figure out a way to do it, and I'm going to fake it if I can. I think it's okay to fake it till you make it. And I think trying to figure out, like, we all don't know what we're doing. We're all just trying to figure it out. This is the beauty of the name of the game, and nobody's formula is going to work for somebody. For instance, Morgan Wallen's formula might not work for Hardy, or Hardy might not work for Morgan Wallen. Everybody's got their own formula. So trying to figure out what my formula is, but not getting too specific with it, having fun. And also, too, one of the biggest things for me is not trying to take life too serious. I'm a more serious person than not, but I think that the failures have taught me to have fun with this, because the more times I've failed are about things I've tried to be too serious about.
Right.
And the things I've succeeded on them. just kind of easy breezy.
I've never heard someone say failure is a reason to do things.
Yeah.
That's a unique answer, because normally, typical answer would be like, oh, my family, or I never want to live the way I used to live, or whatever, but I've never heard someone say the motivation and the inspiration and their why is failure. It's funny, here we go again, we mentioned Steve Harvey, but I literally just saw a video about how you can't, he gave the statistics on, like, I'm using these numbers and I'm screwing these numbers, I'm sorry, but Michael Jordan's shooting 4,000 shots and only making 700 of them, right? And out of the and people only talk about, people will never talk about your failures. People always talk about your success. So he was like making a point about how no matter what, keep failing, because even when you succeed one time, the other times you fail, no one but you is going to really care.
Yep. I am a firm believer in that. I know for a fact that if it was the first time I was ever writing a song, it makes me feel better knowing that Keith Urban had a first time that he ever picked up a pen and had to write a song. Like, we've all had to start at the starting line. Nobody just gets to jump to the finish. Now, we only see the finish, but we never just jump straight to the finish. Failure is and should be everybody's motivational factor. I'm a firm believer in that. I will say that till I die. I think everything else, family, Jesus, God, all money, all that could be a good motivational factor. And they're all attributes that make your moral structure. But I think that failure is the driving force of success.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you on that, because it's like you can't failing is not it's not a bad thing. Failing is a lesson that you learn. Thomas Edison failed however many times. You have all these people that just fell, and people don't really talk about that. And it's like, that's the inspiring stuff. Learning to me, and that's kind of why I started this podcast, is learning what people had to overcome to get to where they are. Because at the end of the day, everyone, doesn't matter how successful you are a human being. You may be a business, you may be a product that, to everyone's eye, you may be a celebrity, but at the end of the day, you had to be homeless. You had to get evicted. You had to get your car repo before you got that Bentley. Everyone should really understand that and really accept that, and just be able to do that. So what do you think? I'm asking you this question because I've never asked an artist this, and I'm really curious as to what they think of themselves on this. What do you think when you first moved to town and you started playing around town? What do you think people's impression of you was?
I was a douchebag.
Really?
Yeah. I think that was a big one. I'm not afraid to say it. I've actually never said that before, but I think, and I don't care. I still think that. That's whatever. Right. But I think like I said, I took life a little too serious. I thought it was completely cutthroat, and I had this very big mindset. I was really like big into like the pop culture, like the way that they conducted business. I was a big fan of like, I'm not a big fan of the music personally, but I was a big fan of the way that they like structured, like Russ or like Jay-Z or Kanye, like the way that they did business. I thought that was super cool. And it's a little bit different than how country music conducts business. I think this is more of a family and helping each other out. And I learned that. And my publisher, he'll tell you, when I first started with the publishing company and the label that I'm with, 12-6, I had a chip on my shoulder. I had a real chip on my shoulder. And it's okay to have a chip on your shoulder. You should have a little bit of a chip on your shoulder. At the end of the day, this is still a business, and you still have to conduct it with the business. And my name is still on the business that I tour and run on. So,
right.
But I was just, I wasn't always the friendliest. I felt like I was always trying to compete with people rather than trying to compete with myself. I was trying to compare myself. I was trying to be somebody else. But I've always kind of kept the mindset that I want to be the first Roman Alexander, not the second somebody. So trying to find the healthy balance of that. And I think I've finally found my stride in my run. So that kind of helps.
And yeah, everyone wants to be the next or the next Garth Brooks or next whatever, next Keith Urban, next Tim McGraw. It's like, no, why don't you just try to be the first whoever, you know, instead of trying to. I think this industry has an issue with comparing everyone to everyone else.
Well, I was gonna say with the last thing we talked about, yes, because one thing that really annoys me that I'm starting to see, and you know what, I think TikTok and Reels and
Mm-hmm.
Instagram and all those things, they're fantastic platforms. They allow artists to be I think TikTok's more of an artist discovery tool than anything, but it's
Yeah.
also a growth platform. It's not my primary platform, but all of them kind of coincide with each other. The biggest thing for me, I think, is people get caught up in momentum too much. I think there's a healthy balance. If you don't release enough music, you're going to lose momentum, and that's been the thing for time. But the problem is you release music, and then somebody else releases music, and it's all disposable so fast. That's why albums, are really hard to push these days. That's why people just drop singles and singles and singles and EPs, and then you find yourself comparing, like, well, they just released that and they're doing something really cool, so I got to do that. And I think that's the problem. People get caught up in comparing themselves to and being competitive, when you should be competing with yourself at the end of the day.
Yeah, my grandma used to always say, if you're gonna run with the horses, make sure you have your blinders on,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to get too caught up in what someone next to you is doing, because in reality, if that person, let's say for instance, that person's ahead of you in the game or ahead of you in the race, you're gonna get distracted and discouraged. So you're gonna want to slow down. A lot of people going to slow down the race instead of just like, I don't care what's next to me, I'm just gonna run this race, and if I win, I win. But if I don't, it's a lesson that I've learned, or what I learn about myself and what I can do better. That that I could succeed at.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people, that is with the comparison thing. You just, this industry, it sucks that way, and I think also it blocks a lot of people getting record deals.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I also think that once you get a record deal, I think a lot of record labels, and this is going to piss some people off, but it's the truth. I think when they become successful with one artist, they try to use that same formula with someone else.
Yeah.
With a new artist, I've known labels to, there's a certain A-lister that I know that is like, top of her game, but every female artist that their label signs, they try to turn into that person. And it's like, you can't, because everyone is their own unique individual. And that comes with artistry as well. You can't make someone sound like someone else.
Yeah. That is probably the most honest thing anybody can say in the music industry is people like familiarity. But I remember the first time, the one thing I always hear is, well, country fans like that. Well, I remember taking a girl on a date to see this guy play. We went to Columbia, Missouri. He played a Blue Note, and it was all sorority girls. And I was like, oh my God, he's got it stacked in here. There's nothing but hot girls everywhere. And he stepped out on stage, and he had this gold chain and a flat-billed hat. And he sat down, and his name was Sam Hunt. And I remember him playing, and I was like, oh my God, like, what am I listening? I've never heard this before. But all the guys there, they talked about Sam Hunt. They didn't like him. But I saw something about him. I like this. Number one, the songwriting is incredible. Number two, he's different, and I like that. Maybe because I was kind of an outcast in high school, and it made me feel like that's okay to be different. It's okay to stand out, and to be a different color in the crowd. And sure enough, 2 years later, he blew up even bigger. Went on the Lady Antebellum tour. Take Your Time went #1. Leave the Night On, House Party, blah blah blah. And everybody loves Sam Hunt. Now everybody loves Sam Hunt. And then I go back and listen to Montebello, and I'm like, that was pretty fucking country. Like, that was pretty fucking country.
Yeah, which is crazy, because when you look at it then, at that point in time, it was a game changer. But now it's like, nowadays it's like, that's pretty normal now. That's know what I mean. Well, that's a trend. That was a trend-setting move that he made. It was trend-setting sound, because now everyone wants to be. All of a sudden, you started hearing people talking in their verses as opposed to singing in their verses.
And they all tried to be. I remember right after they started trying to dress like Sam Hunt, the long shirts.
Yeah.
And they tried to be a second Sam Hunt. I that goes for artists in all formats, whatever. But I can't speak on anybody particular that I can remember, but I remember that being the case. And then it switched up a little bit. One of my favorite artists of all time, like generally like himself, is TJ Osborne from Brothers Osborne.
Yeah.
And I remember like seeing him play, and I was like, this guy's just a bad motherfucker. Like, he's just got it figured out. He was so badass. Still is, obviously, but man, Brothers Osborne is one of my favorite groups, I think, that I've kind of dove into this last year. My original favorite guy, though, is Billy Currington. I think he's like one of the most underrated guys ever.
I think, yeah. Oh, you and me both. I think he's definitely underrated. I think he should be bigger than what he is. I mean, the guy has, I think, 11 or 12 number one hits.
Oh, I opened up for him in Texas, and his first song was "Good Directions." I was like, that's when you have hits, is when your opening song is "Good Directions" and your last song is "We Are Tonight."
Yeah, which is a Sam Hunt song.
yeah, it was literally front to back hits. I mean, all the way down.
And it's crazy because because like you look at so many people now that are like that.
Yeah.
How many? You look at the Tim McGraws, you look at the Kenny Chesneys, where their sets are getting longer, but they're also still cutting out songs that people that are number one hits that people want to hear. For instance, I know Keith Urban hasn't played "But for the Grace of God" and God knows how long.
Jerry Flowers, who's my producer,
said
that they just started playing "You'll Think of Me" back in their set, which
that's his biggest hit.
He hasn't played it, I guess.
Why did you stop playing that?
Right. I know. And that was such a good song. Soul is a great song, always will be. But I think artists, he's a true artist, though. I mean, he likes to experiment and dive around and test out different things, which I really respect for that. That's why I say country fans love familiarity, because they wanted something that felt familiar to them. That Golden Road was like all familiar songs over time. But another thing that, we had talked about earlier was my biggest thing that I think I'm trying to accomplish is longevity, not short-term success. So, yes, I mean, my numbers, my touring numbers, I don't want to go and open up for a bunch of people. That's not my goal. My booking agent have strategically sat down and gone through that. I don't want to open up for all these massive artists. I want to start in small markets and play in that small market and grow and grow and grow and grow and build that underground fan base, because to me, that's more valuable than, and don't get me wrong, it's fun opening up.
Right.
But if you don't have a radio hit, most people will never remember who you are.
Oh, and that's how it was with Eric Church for the longest time. With Eric didn't have a radio hit. He didn't have a number one hit until Drink in My Hand. And people knew, who he was from Smoke a Little Smoke, but at the same time, Smoke a Little Smoke didn't get a lot of airplay until after he was a big star, and they kind of had to play it. But he was on tour, and he played, even though he was opening for people, he still played the smaller market, because at the end of the day, and I hate to say it, but that's where the money's at. You start playing this stuff, and you grow your brand, and you grow your listenership, should I say, on everything in your audience. And then radio will have no option but to play you, and labels will have no option but to look at you and start taking you seriously when they start seeing your numbers as far as ticket sales is concerned.
Growing, playing for a massive crowd grows your ego, and playing for a small crowd, but they're there to see you, grows your business.
Yes.
And to me, I think that's the short-term game versus longevity game. And like I said, I don't have the formula, I don't have the answers, but that's what I'm starting to notice for myself. I get really on these massive hypes when I open up to somebody, and it's so fun. And don't get me wrong, it does build fans. I get fans out of that. But for people to come and see me play at a small bar, and I don't care if it's 6 people, but that's 6 people I never had before. And
Mhm.
those 6 people know my songs. They know every word. That to me is just as valuable, if not more valuable, than having 3,000 people in an arena that don't know your song, but they're there to have
Mhm.
a good time, you know?
Right, which is very true. I mean, everyone, because that's honestly the goal for an artist is to have a crowd, doesn't matter how big or small, sing their song that they wrote or that they recorded back to them, or
Hmm.
having a crowd that knows who they are, not just there to see a Lady Antebellum, or not just there to see a Darius Rucker or somebody. So
Right.
it makes whole it understands completely. So we're talking about your career here, and I really didn't expect this conversation to get as intellectual and deep as it has. But so what's been the hardest decision you've had to make in your career,
Um,
and the
I don't
biggest
know about
sacrifice?
the biggest sacrifice. I don't think I've had that yet. I'm sure that time is going to come when I'm going
Mhm.
to have to make that decision. Um, I think the biggest thing I've had to do is share. I think sharing comes for management,
Mhm.
signing a publishing deal, and when your ship gets a little bigger, your turns get a little slower, but that's all right. They're
Mhm.
good slow turns if you have the right team. I think it's having to, if I really love a song, having to sit down with the team and explain why I love a song. Versus when I was independent,
Mhm.
I didn't, I didn't have to do that. If I liked a song, I would just cut it.
Right.
And now there's more strategic thinking behind everything, and that's been a not a challenge by any means, but it's having to learn how to work with others. And I think it's been a lesson more than anything, and a good lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely sharing is definitely a lesson to learn. You know,
Yeah,
um, this business, you were an athlete. You were an athlete. So like this business is it's very teamwork.
yeah,
It's very teamwork. You can't make a move in this industry by yourself. Um, you have to have the right manager, you have to have the right publishing company, right label, right booking agency behind you, supporting you, that truly believes in you, not just believes in your artistry, or it's not just in it for the money. You know.
yeah. Here's the number one mistake that a lot of artists make. Um, and like I said, I'm no genius to it. I'm new. I'm going to be a new artist for a very long time. Learn every day. I'm learning something new about myself and about the industry. Sometimes the hard way, sometimes the easy way. Um, but so many artists just hand the reins to people, and they forget what they wanted out of it. So, for instance, if you're an entrepreneur, you're growing your brand, you're the boss, you're the CEO. I don't see, at the end of the day, people work for you, your team works for you, but I don't see it like that, even though I do see it like that. In the present, I see it as we work together, and we're going to work together as a team, and that's how we move forward. But I think the biggest thing is so many people just hand the reins and they say, "Oh yeah, that's fine, that's good. Yeah, you guys know what you're doing. You're a big label. Oh, you're a big manager. Oh, you're a big radio team. You know, you got this." And that is not the case, because nobody's
Wow.
gonna love it more than you. Nobody can want it more than you, but they have to be as passionate as you
Wow.
are.
I literally just had this conversation with a couple friends this past week.
Hmm.
Um, you know, an artist friend had some issues, and I literally said the same exact thing. Even though these people are your team, I said somewhat the opposite. Even though they're your team and you work together well, and that's great, at the end of the day, you're a CEO,
Hmm.
you're the boss,
Yep.
it is your company,
Yep.
it is your career.
Hmm.
Like you said, no one's going to sell you, and no one's going to promote you better than you. And so you you can't leave, like you said, you can't leave your career in someone else's hands. You know what you want to do, find
Hmm.
a way to do it. If it doesn't happen the way you want to do it, that's fine, find another way to make it happen. you know um but don't just sit there and let your management or your publishing company or your record label take full control over what you want. I remember a story about Toby Keith and Scott Borchetta when they were at DreamWorks together, and the label kept pushing songs that that Toby Keith didn't want to put out for a single. And Borchetta ended up going. I think Borchetta was like the head of the radio promotion team, and Borchetta went out to see him play one night, and he played Should Have Been a Cowboy, and the fucking crowd went nuts. The fucking crowd went nuts, and it wasn't a single. It wasn't anything. The crowd went nuts, and he got on the bus, and Toby wanted that to be the single. Toby was already fighting for that to be the single, and once Scott had saw that Toby was right on that, that was Toby taking control of his career.
Yep. It's okay to have political plays.
Yes.
Where if you pick this song, this might get you to a certain place that you probably wouldn't get to with this other song. But I think once you get your foot in the door, you got to let the horses go. And I think you got to have a little bit more creative control. But that starts with the contract. That starts with the lawyer. You sit down. That starts at the starting line. Before you get to the starting line, a lot of artists only see. So here's my biggest thing. I said this from day one. Everybody sees themselves at A and Z, and they say, "Oh, Z is where I want to be, but A is where I'm at." But nobody wants to talk about what goes on in between that. The alphabet is my favorite reference, and I think I want to play arenas. I want to play stadiums. That's cool. I want to have the number one. I want to have $1 million in my bank, and I want to be very successful. I'm a firm believer I'm going to do that, but that's not what I care about right now. The thing I care about is what I'm going to do tomorrow that's going to affect the next day. That's going to affect the next day. It's going to affect the next month, the next year, and grow from there. That's why I'm saying no short term. I want longevity. In a long-term play, Rome wasn't built in a day. You got to put down brick by brick and grow and grow and grow each day.
Yep. And that's, I mean, Dierks Bentley was the same way. Dierks Bentley another way. Dierks Bentley kept co-headlining with Miranda Lambert and opening for Miranda Lambert and opening for other people before I think it was I want to say 4 or 5 years ago when he finally decided. I think at that mark he was at his eighth year in a career after having 15 or 20 number ones, where he decided he was going to finally do his first like major arena headlining tour. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
I'm in the baking business. I'm not in the frying pan business.
Yep.
And that's kind of what it is. So let's talk more about your music here, because I want to talk about you and the mutual friend we have, Miss Ashley Cook. Sweetheart, love her to death. But because your original song, the original Between You and Me was not a duet, and I know your management kind of gave you the idea, but was it really as quick as you say it was that it was Ashley Cook?
In my head, yes, absolutely. That's exactly what I had thrown around. I threw out a couple other names, but she had always kind of been like, I'm a really big believer. She hadn't even had music out that much yet. At the time, I don't think she had any music out. I mean, she had put out a couple of things like covers, etc.
Right.
And TikTok had already been kind of doing well with her, but I had met her long before that, where she was still trying to figure out if she wanted to be an artist or not. She might hate me for saying that, but that's the truth. So I brought her name up in a couple of meetings, and the song had already been doing great. It was doing fantastic. It was already on Hot Country. It was already on the major Apple playlist. It didn't really need it. It didn't really need another person on it. I was kind of a firm believer in that. But I thought not only will this elevate and help me out, it also helped her out too. And she was the perfect person for that. I went through all the playlists because I'd thrown her name out and just tried to figure out if there was anybody else that possibly can help move the needle. And she moved the needle more than anybody I could have probably asked for. Only because we have a genuine relationship as friends, though. I mean, like, we are genuinely friends. It wasn't just a duet where we do a couple PR moves and never see each other. Her and I genuinely hang out. Once or twice a month.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy. I mean, that's the night we met. I was actually there because of her. So you guys are genuinely friends. This is not where we're, like you said, you guys, we just put the label put together or whatever. And 15 million streams on Spotify so far?
Yeah. So total, like 27 million I kind of, because it's the same song, so I just kind of throw them all together.
Yeah.
And then Apple Music. So I mean, yeah, we're right at around like 30 million plus. So pretty rocking.
That's freaking crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
I played it live. And I remember like that. This is what the cool moment. I didn't videotape it. I'm sure one of the content guys I had out there that did one day. And I sang it, and I sang the chorus, and the people knew the chorus. And that right there was like, okay, this is how I know I have something on my hands here.
Wow.
And Cocktail Conversations isn't that big either, but it did the same thing.
Right.
Yeah,
I love Cocktail Conversations. I really do. It's nice. It's a nice groove. Melodically, it's phenomenal. And I love the video. The picture I saw of you smoking a cigar. That's totally you. That's totally you.
So my dog is right behind.
I see that.
So my biggest thing with cigars is I've always been like, cigars is not something I like stumbled into. I mean, for gifts every year I get boxes of cigars. Like, it's like a big thing for me. I'm just a big cigar aficionado. Like, I'm not super like a snob on brands and stuff. I just like the cigar.
I love smoke. You're like me. I'm not a snob on brands. If you give me a cigar, I don't care what brand it is, I'm gonna smoke it.
Yeah, I don't care if it's a freaking Java.
Yeah.
Just give it to me. If it's a Monte Cristo, like the cheap gas station one, I don't care if it's a Black and Mild. I'll just smoke it.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of my music was inspired in a cigar bar. For instance, my song "Beautiful Girls," the opening line is "walking out of a cigar bar downtown," and that was at Monte Cristo Lounge, or I believe it was I'm 90% sure it was at the Monte Cristo Lounge. And my buddy and I were walking out, and a girl across the street was just, drop dead gorgeous. And my friend goes, man, she's hot. And I remember like the next day I went into the room and I was like, opening line of the song, walking out of the cigar bar downtown.
Yeah, that was definitely Monte Cristo, because I know at one point they used to have a club across the street. Forget what it was called, but there was a nightclub across the street before. Now
she was walking from the Pine Street Flats area. I remember that.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So now there's the Uncommon Ground.
Yeah. And
store,
the dog place.
Right, and the dog place, and then Tim McGraw's like fitness center, True Math. So it's like you're gonna always see walking out of Casa de Monte Cristo some attractive female across the street.
Yeah. That is one thing that Nashville is not short on, and I don't care what anybody thinks. I think people are too politically correct these days. I love women. I think that women are the greatest gift to this earth. I love, and I mean that in the best way possible, not as like to sound like a douchebag. I mean, genuinely, all the women in my life are extremely strong women.
Yeah.
My sister's a staff sergeant and was a staff sergeant in the Marine Corps. Now she's a wildland firefighter. She was a paramedic before that. My mom, worked in the car industry where it was just all men. I mean, the very strong women. Women are the backbone of my family, which is, I think, I gravitate to having a lot of friends who are females. Like Ashley and I are some of my best friends. Like, Alana Springsteen. Those are some of my closest friends.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I completely agree, because I was raised with strong women, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, and so 95, probably like you, 95% of my friends are females.
Yeah,
are strong, smart females, not just strong, but strong, smart females that don't take no shit.
No, and if you're gonna be friends with people you can learn from.
Yeah.
And I learn more. All my friends, we all have one thing in common, is we all learn things from each other.
Yeah.
If I'm being dumb, I'll hear from it. I'll hear about it the next day.
Absolutely.
Something stupid I said.
Oh, absolutely. I get that all the time.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
I get that all the time. You really shouldn't have said that last night. Did I really say that though? I don't remember that.
I didn't say it, but Jack sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jack, I didn't say it. Jack definitely said it last night, and you're just blaming for what Jack said.
Yep. So Jack said it, and then my two friend Casa and Migos.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Casa Amigos, those twin brothers, I tell you, they get me in trouble every time.
Every time. Red Door, what?
Yeah, exactly.
No.
So now, what's next for you? Like, so new album coming out anytime soon?
New music. I don't know when this is coming out, but November.
So next month it's coming out in October.
Yeah, next month. We're pushing for that. November. We have the song picked. We're ready to roll. And tour, all touring next month. We got this tour, so pretty excited about that.
So right now, you're inputting music out. What's your creative mindset right now?
I'm already focused on the next stuff. I'm really big about living in the moment, working on what the task at hand is. But the funny thing about releasing music is once you release it, you can push it and do all the campaigns and whatnot. The music's going to kind of do the work for you. You got to kind of push and use the platforms to the best of their ability to push the song. But I'm already kind of focused on the next thing. I think people move on real quick. So to me, I think that's also been the hardest thing about having a label and team. I love them to death, but I think that, like I said, the bigger the ship, the slower the turns, but those are really major turns. They're really good turns. So for me, the next task at hand is just getting the next music out after this.
Wow. Well, Roman, this has been a phenomenal episode. I'm glad after 3 years that we finally got you on this show. Next time it will be in person because there will be a next time. It will be.
We should do one with Ashley and I together.
We can definitely work on that. Let's work. I mean, talk to Ashley's team because we'll talk about that all. We'll get that worked out.
More than anything, I could just get her. She doesn't have to smoke a cigar. I'll smoke the cigar. She could sit next to me.
Me and you can smoke a cigar and she can just drink.
She has a song called "Already Drink That Drink" or "Already Drink That Beer" or something like that. So she drinks.
She drinks. But definitely let's make it happen again. Seriously, this has been phenomenal. This has been amazing. A deep conversation, deeper than what I thought I was going to get with you. Thank you for being so open.
Yeah, podcast conversation.
Yeah, that's really all it is. I keep trying to tell people it's just a regular conversation.
It's not an interview. It's a conversation.
It's a conversation. So go stream all of his shit. I mean, he's getting ready to hit 30 million. Let's try to give him that 40. Let's give him that 40 million.
Let's do it. Give me the money. Let's do it. I won't see it.
I won't see it.
Yeah, gotta recoup.
But go stream Smoking Section Podcast. Go listen to all of our episodes. Leave a review on Apple Music, please, because those benefit us a lot more than you think they do. So this has been another episode. Thank you so much for joining us.